Good morning and salutes of New Democracy. My name is Enrico de Gregorio. I am a journalist from A Nova Democracia and host of the A Propósito News program. As some of you know, we are still covering the war in Palestine, that is, the national liberation war of the Palestinian people against the aggression war of the Zionist state of Israel. Since October 7th, the world was turned upside down by the actions of the Palestinian national resistance. Israel, once an unquestionable fortress of the US in the Middle East, is now questioned by all democratic, progressist, anti-imperialist, and revolutionary forces, organization, and masses. A few weeks ago, South Africa moved a legal process against the Zionist state of Israel on the International Court of Justice, accusing it of genocide. Isaac Herzog, the president of Israel, was also targeted by criminal charges during the World Economic Forum in Davos last week. This is just one aspect of the political isolation and defeat of the Israel state that stands side by side with its military and economic losses. To understand more about this conflict, the role of international organisms in it, and also the role of culture in it, we are joined here today by Mr. Frank Barat. Frank Barat is a French activist, author, and film producer. He was the coordinator of the Russell Tribunal on Palestine from 2008 until 2014, and he is also the co-founder of BARC Productions, a film production company created in Brussels in February 2019. He has edited books with Noam Chomsky, Ilan Pappé, Ken Loach, and Angela Davis. He was part of the founding team of the Festival Ciné-Palestine in Paris and the Palestine with Love Festival in Brussels. Mr. Barak, we are very honored to have you here today. Thank you so much for your presence.
Thanks for inviting me. It's a pleasure to talk to you today.
And Mr. Barat, you were the coordinator of the Russell Tribunal on Palestine. On the movement's website, the first Russell Tribunal was described as an international war crimes tribunal constituted in 1966 to investigate crimes committed in Vietnam and judged them according to international law, initiated by Lord Russell Nobel Prize of Literature in 1950 and supported by eminent intellectuals such as Jean-Paul Sartre. Could you tell us a little bit more about the Russell Tribunal on Palestine? How was to coordinate the project from 2008 to 2014?
So yeah, thanks. It's a very good question because what's happening right now at the International Court of Justice, for example, is in a way what led to the Tribunal on Palestine in 2000. And we started talking about it in 2007. In 2004, the International Court of Justice had an advisory opinion on the wall in Palestine and deemed it to be illegal. The majority of the judges, I think it was 14 judges, voted against the wall in Palestine and asked third parties, so states, to make sure the wall in Palestine was dismantled. And nothing happened. So obviously Israel, continued building the wall, and third-party states, France, Spain, Italy, Greece, the US, didn't do anything to stop it. So we thought at the time that if international bodies like the highest judicial court in the world don't have an impact on actually, practical policies on the ground, maybe the people could take over and need to take over some kind of direct democracy action. So we obviously knew about the tribunal in Vietnam that Bertrand Russell launched in the late 60s. We knew of the history of popular tribunals. There was one also in Latin America in the mid-70s around the military dictatorships in Argentina and in Chile, of course. And we thought at the time that it was important for us, the people, to use international law and show that if it was to be respected, Israel's occupation and colonization of Palestine would have stopped many years ago. So we had 4 sessions of the tribunal, no, actually 5, one in Barcelona that focused on the European Union complicity, one in London that focused on corporate, so major companies complicity, one in South Africa, which focused on, is it the crime of apartheid? And actually, this was in 2011, and we came to the conclusion, and remember, it was all done by legal experts, that we could call it apartheid. So it was 10 years before Amnesty International, Human Rights Watch, B'Tselem came with the same conclusion. And obviously, Palestinians had been saying this for many years as well. So yeah, we ended up doing one in New York as well to focus on UN and US complicity. And finally, we ended up in Brussels to wrap it all together. So this was sort of the process of the tribunal. And yeah.
Okay, thank you for your answer. It was very, very explanatory about the process. And you said that before legal actions on the ICJ already happened before against the state of Israel, but nothing quite happened. Israel kept its aggression against the Palestinian people, and other countries kept its complicity. We have now a quite different situation concerning all the situation of the Middle East and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The actions of the Palestinian national resistance are unprecedented. Also, the political losses of Israel, its political isolation, its losses in all aspects are also unprecedented. You think that now it is a time, it is a moment that this kind of actions, when supported, of course, by a popular movement, a strong popular movement, can have a different effect that it had before?
Yeah, I think we have to use, in a way, all the tools we can. And the ICJ case this time that South Africa brought against Israel is very different from the one in 2004. In 2004, it was only an advisory opinion, so it was not binding, which means that it's an advice. This one is very different. It's actually a binding verdict. So if South Africa wins, it could be towards the end of the week or early next week. If the judges come back in favor of South Africa, Israel has the obligation, as part of the ICJ and as a signatory of the Genocide Convention, it has the obligation to listen to what the ICJ says and to put it into practice. If Israel doesn't, obligate to what the court has said, third-party states, the US, France, Germany, Brazil, also have an obligation as part of the ICJ to make Israel stop the war in Gaza if it's the conclusion of the court. So this is very different, and it's a very important political moment. We're seeing that it's like it shows how the world is right now, right? The global South has backed the case of South Africa at the ICJ. Many countries have said they will join the case and have supported the case. And the imperialist former colonial North, France, the UK, Germany, the US, are in a way standing beside Israel, but they're very isolated. And there are countries like France and stuff, and that are more and more hesitant to support Israel. So we could come to the case where the court comes back with the verdict for South Africa in the next few days, and the majority of the world, maybe except the US, says we have to do what the court says. So it'll be a very important moment, because also it can also bring legal actions then towards French officials, Spanish officials, US officials for not fulfilling their obligations. So it's a crucial case. And there's many other things happening. We launched a letter a few days ago. Oh, it was yesterday, actually, where we put the French, German, Austrian, and Dutch government we told them, if you're not acting to stop the genocide, we might start legal actions against you. There are cases at the ICC, the International Criminal Court. I think you mentioned there was a case brought against Herzog in Switzerland. So the idea is to attack Israel from all corners: civil society, media, culture, legal, because like we have reached a point where Israel has become a pariah state, a rogue state, and it should be impossible now for anyone linked with Israel apartheid policies to lead a normal life, to travel when they want, to attend EU meetings. It's over. So I think it's a very, very important moment that we are living through.
Okay, this was very enlightening. And changing the scope a little bit, as a film producer, you understand also the importance of culture in the shaping of ideology of society. Would you tell us a little bit more also, as an activist, as a person who is also engaged in the Palestinian conflict by accompanying and studying it? And could you tell us a bit about the effects of the Zionist culture and ideology in Israel and the world? On the other hand, what would you say are the effects of the Palestinian people's culture and ideology of struggle for the oppressed people? Word. So this two hands of the ideology and the role of culture in this conflict.
I mean, first, I think that what touches people primarily are stories. You know, people telling you what they went through, what they lived through, what their life is about. You know, even on a personal level, you know, when you meet someone, you want to know where this person is coming from, why this person is the way she is or he is. So I think stories have an amazing power, you know, and I think to show people what Palestine is about, stories are crucial, because actually Israel, like all colonial powers, has tried to erase the history of the Palestinian people from since the beginning. Right, the Zionist movement was created in a way. They told you there's a vacuum, there's no one in this land, and we have no land. We'll take the land. Very easy. The Palestinian people don't exist. You know, the Palestinian people can go anywhere they want. They don't really exist. They don't thrive in Palestine. They don't cultivate the land. They don't do trade, which was all lies. You know, Palestine in the early 30s, you know, was a vibrant society. Jaffa was one of the biggest port in the region. You had like trade, you had like culture, you had loads of things. And actually, what Israel did, one of the first things they did when they colonized Palestine, is steal books. There's actually a documentary about it called The Great Book Robbery. Because if you want to erase a people and its history and its culture, you're going to burn the books. You're going to steal the books. You're going to steal the poetry. You're going to erase the food. You're going to erase the customs, the practices that these people have. You're going to erase the dance. You're going to erase the kufiyeh. So that's what Israel has done. And the Zionist movement narrative from the start has used culture immensely. I mean, one of the first films made about the return of the Jewish people to Israel was Exodus with Paul Newman, which was a very, very big film in Hollywood. You know, the old narrative about we getting on boats, we're going where we belong, etc. So it's been used immensely to justify the presence of Israeli Jews in Israel. And while they've tried to erase the Palestinian voice, Palestinian voices have, you know, emerged throughout the years as well. And actually, when I was involved with the FCP, so Festival Ciné-Palestine in Paris, that I helped create with a couple of very good friends, I realized that there were so many incredible stories coming out of Palestine, so many incredible scripts, but that they couldn't find the money to make the films. They didn't have maybe the network to make the films. So that's why we created this production company, and we're just trying to. I mean, most of the films and documentaries we are working on are actually Palestine focused. So I think it's very important. You know, culture is very important, and we've seen the success of Palestinian films at the Academy Awards, like, you know, Five Broken Cameras, like Omar, like Farah Nabulsi, The Present, at the BAFTA. So it's very important, and I think that it's a massive problem for Israel. They have tried for years now to erase the Palestinians, and the Palestinians are still there and are actually also very successful, some of them abroad. So it's a massive problem for Israel. But it's good. A problem for Israel is good for us.
Okay, it's very interesting to understand more about the role of culture, particularly the movie industry. I knew about the role of literature. We have the great book of Hassan Kanafani about Zionist literature, but I didn't know a lot of the role of the movie industry in the Zionist ideology and the Zionist culture. So it was very rich. Also, your answer, and also,
I mean, if I
yeah. First,
sorry, if I can add something, if you remember the Hollywood movies in the 80s, it was the time of like action movies with like Chuck Norris and Charles Bronson and people like that. Most of the bad people, the terrorists, were either Arab or Palestinians. So it was part of framing Palestinians as terrorists. And it was, massive in Hollywood. I remember watching these films when I was like a teenager, not really realizing what they were about. But these films were propaganda for Israel because they portrayed Palestinians as terrorists all the time. You couldn't see a nice Palestinian guy in any of these films.
Yeah, that's right. And among this, also to salute your work by bringing the Palestinian movies to more and more people, organizing these festivals that you do in Paris and also in Brussels. This is a very rich and important work. So also salute your role in it. And Frank, we had and we also keep having a strong popular movement now against the aggression of Israel against Gaza and also in support of the Palestinian people. In this popular movement are artists, intellectuals, masses in general, popular masses, and we also had a lot of important figures taking part. We had, for example, if we're going to focus on one press vehicle, that is the New York Times, figures like Jake Silverstein, Jasmine Hughes, and Ann Boyer that quit their jobs, resigned their jobs in support of the Palestinian people. How do you think intellectuals, activists, masses, and artists in general around the world can support Palestine? What do you think of the current protests taking place around the world?
I mean, it's incredible. And remember that the first impact and the first people they touch is actually the Palestinians themselves. You have to remember that there was a survey recently made in Palestine asking the people, who do you think, or which country do you think supports you? So you had like, France, Germany, Turkey, Iran, Russia, and the majority of the people at 56% responded no one, no countries. So the sense of being alone, being completely alone while being genocided by a very powerful state is massive in Palestine. So, when you talk to people in Palestine, when you talk to people in Gaza, when they see people, millions of people around the world, because we're talking millions weeks ago, it's very important for them. Because, I mean, the feeling of abandonment is one of the worst feelings you can have, right? So, so it's crucial to be on the streets to talk about Palestine. Palestine is still the issue after so many years. And for me, Palestine is kind of a microcosm of everything that is wrong with the world. Support of the US, bombing people, apartheid policies, bombing schools, mosques, arresting people with no charges, arresting kids, torturing kids. I mean, the list is endless. But it's also, for me, a window into a very, very different world, and actually a fairer world, a just world, because of the solidarity that millions of people around the world, citizens, politicians, some of them, artists, celebrities, are expressing towards Palestine. And yeah, we live, at one point, we are experiencing the first genocide broadcasted live on our screens. It's a moment of rupture, right? There will be a before and an after Gaza 2023, 2024. And it'd be very important, in years to come, you'll ask people, what were you doing? Where were you in November, December 2023? Were you involved? A genocide took place. What did you do to stop it? So it's crucial to just keep going at it, because it's about us. It's about human civilization as a whole. It's not only about Palestinians. It's what's happening is touching us all as human beings. So yeah.
Yeah, it is very important to have this in mind, the importance of what is going on as a genocide and as a moment of particular importance in the history of the Palestinian conflict, the Palestinian national resistance. It is indeed very important to have this in mind and to act in correspondence in which the movement asks. And as someone who has been in Palestine and whose activism, as you said, for years has focused on defending the rights of the Palestinian people, how do you see the Zionist state's current attacks on the Palestinian people compared to Israel's other campaigns of aggression? I mean, in the last months, we had the Al-Shifa situation, the invasion of hospitals. We had in the last days, the last two days, bombings of UN shelters in Gaza. And how do you see these attacks, this campaign, this step of the Israeli genocide against the Palestinian people compared to others campaigns and invasions and steps of the Israeli war?
It's a very important question. I remember, one of the first real big live massacre on Gaza was in 2009, called Operation Cast Lead. It lasted about 3-4 weeks. I think 1,200 to 1,400 Palestinians were killed by Israel. And at the time, it already felt like a very important moment. Like, as activists, as people working on Palestine, we thought that it'd be a moment that could change everything, And unfortunately, it didn't. And Israel bombed Gaza again, I think 2012, in 2014, in 2020. So, but this time, and you've seen it, in 3 months, more than 30,000 Palestinians have been killed. Many of them are still under the rubble, so the numbers will be much higher than the numbers we are talking about now. More than 10,000 children have been killed. 75% of habitations and buildings in Gaza have been partly destroyed or destroyed. Hardly a few hospitals are left standing. Mosques, schools, everything, media centers, everything has been erased in a way. So that's why I was saying that, Israel has gone a step too far. But also, I remember when I spoke to Susan Abulawa about this, if you've been involved with Palestine and with Israel for so long, in a way, it's not a surprise, because we always knew that at one point, if you don't stop a monster, if you feed a monster, if you feed a bully, someone at school that is bigger and a bit, taller than everyone else and slaps little kid in the face over and over and over again, if you don't stop him or her, he'll continue and do more and more and more harm to people, right? If you stop him, you'll realize, oh shit, people are reacting. So in a way, October the 7th, the attack of the Palestinian resistance was kind of a big slap in the face of the bully and the oppressor. But obviously they reacted with monstrosity, rage, and vengeance, because they again, like a friend of mine, Nurit Peled, said, you cannot stomp on people's faces for years and years and years and expect them to remain silent and to remain like inoffensive. So Israel this time, and again, Susan was saying, like, for people that have worked on the issue for many years, it was bound to happen at one point, because remember that Zionism was built on the premise that it's a land without a people. So since they've colonized Palestine, before 48 and in 48 when Israel was created, the Zionist movement has tried to erase one way or another the Palestinians. They've tried ethnic cleansing in 48, they've tried ethnic cleansing in 67, and they've tried slow ethnic cleansing since. But unfortunately for them, Palestinians are still on the land. So this monster is going mad. It's going, whatever we do, they're still on the land. So now let's go it like big time, properly. Let's show the whole world what we are about. So it's not hidden anymore, and a genocide is taking place. But you cannot say we need to use that because 30,000 people plus have died. But it's a moment that I'm pretty guaranteed will be a moment that change a lot of things for the future of Palestine, Israel, the Middle East, I think.
Okay, it is also very very important. Also, this answer bring us to reality and to call us to understand again, to understand the importance of what is going on. And Mr. Barat, as an activist and as a film producer, as in various aspects of your life, you dedicated a large part of your life to defending the Palestinian struggle. Could you tell us a little about why you decided to do, why you decided to dedicate yourself, your life, your time, your work to this particular struggle?
For me, life is a journey. It's very hard to plan things ahead. And for me, it's a journey made of encounters with people. And it's a journey of stories that you hear and that you live through, some of them. And for me, I don't see the world as a place divided by religion, ethnicity, race as a social construct, color of the skin, political inclinations. For me, it's going to sound like, I feel like I am a citizen of the world. I don't, consider myself French. I don't consider myself, I live in Belgium now. Belgium, I think we all live in this place and we should treat it as like Mother Earth, respect it, and respect everyone in this place. And so Palestine was just something not planned. But when I went there for the first time in 2007, and I sort of did what they called at the time a study tour, where I met Palestinians, Israeli leftists, and organizations fighting for peace and for justice and for freedom in Palestine. A lot of the Palestinians I met have become brothers and sisters. I feel we are part of the same community. And told me at the time, it's great you came, but your job starts when you're back in France or London or Brussels. So in a way, I sort of listened to them because I felt I owed them. I owe them as a human being. I owe them to actually do, in a way, the best I could to be on their side. And in a way, it's not even being on their side; it's being on the side of humanity, justice, freedom. And so that's why I since I don't think I can say dedicated my life, because it feels it's my life. I don't dedicate my life to my life, so it feels it's part of my journey in life, and it's part of the many friends I've made in Palestine. And I also work on migrants issues, on police violence, because I think it's all part of the same issue, right? And I think you, in a way, as a human being, you always struggle to become a better person. And I don't think you can be fully free if your brothers and sisters are enchained, wherever it might be in the world. So yeah.
Yeah, it is a vision and also an important decision. We here in A Nova Democracia newspaper are always very honored to receive scientists, artists, actuals in general, lawyers, and all people that decide to dedicate a part or their whole life to a certain cause to defend Palestinian people, oppressed people in general, and to take these abilities that this person have to decide to use these abilities, these spaces to take part in a certain struggle and defend the popular masses, the oppressed masses of the world. So also to salute your decision to dedicate a part of your journey or your work to defend the Palestinian people. And Mr. Barat, we are going to the end of the interview. We are extrapolating your time already. And our last question, if you could say something about the importance of international solidarity with Palestine to our viewers here in Brazil, what would it be?
Actually, it's a great way to end, because I'm part of an organization in Palestine. I'm actually working for this charity called the PIPD, so the Palestine Institute for Public Diplomacy. And we recently spoke about the fact that the majority of organizations, charity working on Palestine are very like Euro-centered and Western-centered. So we all like lobbying our MPs in Parliament, in France, in the UK. We all pushing for changes in the US. But we've been doing this for like 50 years, and actually nothing much has changed. And the why is very important and is very easy to answer, because these countries, these hegemonical countries, the US, France, former, imperial powers, former colonial powers, are part of the problem and are actually not only complicit in oppressions everywhere in the world, they are part of it, So we actually thought, why don't we change? And instead of focusing our energy on people that are actually our enemies, we focus our energies on people that might think alike and focus more on the global South and focus more on South America, Latin America. So we decided to actually do that and to forget about imperialist Europe, imperialist, US, imperialist Australia, and actually now work with, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, and other places in the world. So, and also because you guys in South America, in Latin America, know what the struggle is about. You guys know what US imperialism is about. You guys know what US blockade is about. You know what sanctions is about. You know what like US backed, like CIA backed coup are about. You know how the US supported Pinochet. You know how the US supported Videla in Argentina. You know how the US supported the Contras in Nicaragua. So there is a history of struggle, in Latin America, in South America, and in Africa as well. And I think we really focus on this, and I think we should learn from this. And I think solidarity in these places of like former oppressed people, to oppressed people is incredibly important, And I just hope that more countries will join, will support South Africa case to the ICJ, will bring other cases to the ICC and the ICJ. And I think, again, like the global South, which is by a vast majority, the majority world, as now, it's a shift. Again, it's a moment where things are going to shift. And hopefully we'll see in the next few years the start of building a very, very different world.
Okay, it is a great way to answer. Was again very enlightening and will be of very importance to our spectators, to our viewers here in Brazil. Here in Brazil, we had a great campaign of solidarity with Palestine, protests, street protests, also graffitis and Palestinian flags risen in a lot of parts of the country, rural areas, urban areas. So your answer and your call will also be of very importance here in Brazil to our viewers and to all the people here who are standing or divided in which side to stand. Mr. Barat, again, we are very honored to have you here. Thank you for your presence.
Again, yeah, thank you. It was very good talking to you, and thanks for all the work you do. It's I think it's crucial. So yeah, thank you.
We are going very honored, and we are going to end our interview. Thank you very much, and again, salute for your important work.
Thank you. Thanks.